Hello, artists and animators. Ferguson Winston is an artist who works in animation, storyboards, and design with retake animation credits on Solar Opposites and Rick and Morty. He also recently posted a personal project, a fan adaptation of Luther, as portrayed by Idris Elba in the style of Monkey Punch's Lupin the Third. We invited Ferguson onto our live stream to discuss the Luther the Third scene, as well as his career in animation. So, Ferguson, welcome to the stream.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. So, please introduce yourself. What is your origin story and your path to your current role in animation?
Um, my name is Ferguson Winston. Uh, my origin story is I graduated from Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia, in about that was 2008, with a major in animation. And in 2010, I ended up getting an internship in Atlanta and started working on kids and adult animated cartoons. I did that from well, 2010 to about 2015, 16. And, I just kept doing decent work and having friends speak up for me and get me hired at different places. Around 2016 and 2017, a friend in Los Angeles brought me on to do some projects with them. And then I ended up moving out to LA and staying, and ended up working at Rick and Morty around 2019, I believe. And then worked on that for a few years, and Solar Opposites kind of came out of that studio. And I ended up working on Solar Opposites and staying on Solar Opposites to this day, which is where I work now as a retake animator.
Yeah, I think a lot of artists in the industry don't always appreciate how important it is to network and have connections and people who can advocate for you on productions. Do you have advice for like how to network? Did you find most of like your peers through animation school or from previous jobs?
Both, but my start came from school, college. My internship that I got in Atlanta, a friend, Adam Taves, we didn't really hang out in college, but we admired each other's work. And I applied for an internship, and he spoke up for me and got me in. My first job after that, um, I was hanging out with the people that worked at that studio that I was interning at. We all went out to the movies, and they met up with some other animator friends, and a girl named Joanna Davidovich was like, "Yeah, my studio, Primal Screen, is like hiring. You should apply." And so I applied and got that job. And then friends from both of those studios ended up going to another studio called Floyd County. And after my time at Primal ended, I applied to Floyd County and had a bunch of people speak up for me there, and I got hired. Every job I've had has been somebody bringing me on. And it's just, like I said, you go out, you hang out with people, you either meet people at school, you go drinking with people if you drink. Um, yeah, it's just networking is not necessarily like going up to like people and handing them your business card and like being like, "Hey, I'm looking to get into animation." It's, in my experience, the best networking has just been people you're hanging out with, and making connections and friendships with. Every job I've gotten has been somebody um, speaking up for me or being like, "Oh yeah, this guy, I know him. Like, you can do it." I've never gotten hired off of my resume alone. And so, networking is very important. and who you know is important. And making friends is very, very important in the industry.
For sure. So what is the typical day like in the life of a retake animator? And what do you think is the most interesting thing about the role that someone outside the industry might not know about?
My day to day is basically uh, I get up, I roll out of bed, and I go sit at my computer. And actually, since the pandemic happened, I make sure that like I get up, get showered, put on clothes, like I'm actually going to a studio, so that I don't become a slob at home since I work from home all the time. So I kind of get up and go through the motions, get myself together, sit at my computer, and then you know, once I clock in, I check in with my team or my directors or whatever, and we kind of go over what our deadlines are. And then after that, we have a Google Doc, which basically assigns us, like, my director assigns each artist specific shots. And so I look at my list of shots, and then I download my files, and I just start like attacking them and completing shots as fast as I can. Um, and break for lunch, come back, do it again, and then clock out. So that's the basic 8 hour day.
Yeah, I think being able to take care of yourself and have a bit of a routine is very helpful because the alternative can not always be fun after a while.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the project that you shared, Luther the Third?
Yeah. Let's see. This project is something that has kind of been bouncing around in my head for a while. Um, it was, I think it was something that kind of popped into my head maybe 6 or 7 months ago. Um, well, actually, no, that's not true anymore. It was last year, towards the end of last year, that I was watching, I was rewatching Luther, which is one of my favorite shows, starring Idris Elba. And I think around the same time I was watching the Netflix show Lupin, uh, where they both have like the live action one with that. They both I like them because they both have really cool like main black characters. And I was looking at it and I noticed that the Lupin logo was very similar to the Luther logo. And I was like, oh, what if they did a crossover? That just kind of popped into my head. And then I was thinking about it and it wouldn't leave my head. And I was just like, oh, well, what if, I did a crossover and I was also like, I really like Lupin the Third. And so I was like, well, what if I drew Luther in the style of Lupin the Third? And it just stuck in my head. And I thought it was really cool, but I didn't have time to work on it. But it wouldn't leave me alone. And so when I finally had a break from work and some free time on my hands, I decided to make this project because one, I wanted some frame by frame hand drawn animation for my portfolio, and two, I had to get this idea out of my head so it would leave me alone.
I just want to say I love this character design that you did. Can you talk
Thanks.
through how you approached adapting the character into the style?
Uh, yeah. It This stuff's kind of like, I don't know. It's also kind of automatic to me. I don't really explain it. Hopefully, I can explain it well. But basically, what I did was um, I didn't focus on the design first. I focused on the movement, um, and like I knew I wanted to do Luther's walk. And Idris Elba has a very specific walk when he plays Luther, where he throws his weight around a lot, and his shoulders and arms are just kind of flaring out. So I wanted to make sure I got that down because that's the whole thing. It's very iconic and a very cool stride that he has. So that is what I focused on first. Then I was like, all right, well, I want to make this look like Lupin. So I pulled up some reference of Lupin the Third, just some reference images. I don't know if I have them here. Pulled up some Lupin references, and then I drew. Let me see if this works. Yeah, so I pulled up like references like these, and just had them beside me as I was working on the roughs. So I trying to figure out where. Let me see.
I think one thing that's really cool with like Lupin the Third is how exaggerated all of the like character designs are. Like, I think we were talking earlier, and you mentioned like how like Lupin the Third has these like really like spindly stick legs almost, and like really
Mm-hmm.
big feet, big hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So once I got the walk, yeah, like that is something I definitely focused on. So I got the walk down, and then like I once I got the walk, I did this sketch here. Come on, you. This one sketch right here.
Mm,
Um, and once like you said, I focused on the really thin wrists, the big hands, like thin ankles, flare out pants, big shoes with like the pointed up toes. I used this image of Lupin a lot as reference. And so, after I just kind of tried to, and I looked at an image of Idris Elba as well, um, and just kind of like tried to mimic uh, these different Lupin designs. And so once I got that basic image down, then I just went ahead and started animating because like I didn't do any turnarounds or anything like
yeah.
that. I could just kind of see it. So once I did that, I just started laying it on top of this rough right here. And so that's how I went about designing it. I didn't even worry about his face right here until like all the body animation was done. And then,
Yeah. I just want to say I love that you approach this like animation first and then work backwards to design.
yeah,
Because it's not something I've seen a lot of, and I think you're really successful.
thank you. Yeah, that's how I work. I I always have an idea in my head of what it's going to look like, but I don't nail it down until I have the motion figured
Yeah.
out.
I also noticed too, like you put a lot of thought into how the coat moves.
Yeah,
Because like if you're designing a character for animation, one of the things that maybe you don't want to do is have a coat because that just adds complexity.
yeah,
But it also, I think, shows a bit of a flourish, a bit of like that you understand those materials as well.
yeah. Thank you. That was a big thing that I was wrestling with because he wears two coats. He wears his suit jacket and then his longer pea coat or trench coat, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, it was an exercise in trying to figure out because this is a loop, right? It's an
Hmm.
exercise in trying to figure out how to get a decent loop in a few amount of frames, um, so that I'm not like killing myself and with this animation. But also, I also wanted to kind of overlap, um, like make overlapping animation within the confines of this short loop, and not look like it's like popping. So yeah, that was a That was a very interesting thing about trying to figure out this animation. So yeah, there was a lot of little problem solving things that I went through that I honestly didn't really consider until you mentioned it just now. So yeah,
I
thanks.
mean, some of it's unconscious, some of it is just like what you do. But so for Ferguson, if you don't mind me asking, how many frames? I know you mentioned this was animated on fours primarily, right?
Yeah. How many
How many
frames?
frames are in this total?
Oh, total? It is 352 frames.
Okay, yeah.
Um, yeah, so mostly it's animated on fours, but yeah, 352 frames. Um, yeah,
So, what was the most interesting or challenging part of this project?
the most interesting or challenging. Oh, that's I don't know. What was the most interesting or challenging? Uh, well, the fact that I get to draw it was very interesting and challenging because, like I said, um, or
I know we
I don't
discussed it
know.
before the stream, but you were mentioning how, like, as a retake animator, you don't wind up doing a lot of drawing.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I was confused for a second on whether I had mentioned that during the live. Yeah, so as a retake animator, I do not draw. Um, uh, it's all puppets and rigs and moving characters' limbs and yeah. So that was another reason that I did this frame by frame because I am tired of rigs and I want to do like I got into animation because I want to draw stuff and make things come to life and it looks better. Like um, it looks more alive to me when you are drawing something frame by frame. And you get more variety. So like with this, I can actually do like Luther's crazy walk where he's like swinging his arms in front of him and stuff, as opposed to with a rig. Anyways, um, so that was a very interesting and satisfying thing about this project was that I drew it frame by frame by hand. Well, digitally by hand. Um, it was also challenging. Um, Another challenging bit was, figuring out, like I said, the code, the overlapping action, how to fit all the different movements within the loop. Um, and what else was challenging? Uh, Figuring out, because I also wanted to do this, and as I have a bunch of projects that I'm working on, and I was trying to figure out how to finish this project quickly and do it in as few drawings as possible so that I can move on and go to the next thing. So that was challenging. And then also I did the whole process, like the cleanup, color, the effects, the compositing. I did all of that. And so that was interesting and challenging because I've done all those steps before except for compositing.
Hmm.
I'll take that back. I have done compositing, but I did compositing better this time and more. Um, since I wanted to make it look more like anime, I had reference images of animes, and I took those images and tried to replicate it in Harmony. And so that was an interesting challenge because it taught me how to use different Harmony tools to replicate those outcomes, those results. And
Okay.
I also got a friend of mine, Mark Estrada, friend coworker, to kind of guide me on how to execute that as well.
And also, like, if you're working with like reference where it was, on painted cells that were photographed, on like painted backgrounds, right? Like that is a very different approach to animation than even like digital hand-drawn animation, going from like the 90s to now. So I mean, like, what was your approach to sort of translating that or getting that sort of effect?
Uh, to getting the final look of it.
Yeah, you get sort of the because you mentioned like compositing too was a big part of your approach.
Hmm.
What can you take us on a tour actually of like the compositing step?
Sure. Let's see. Bear with me as I um, mess around with these layers real quick. Uh,
The node view.
yeah. Let's take this off. Turn that on. And composite. All right. So there was different stages. I did end up taking some of this into After Effects and doing some compositing, but I did most of the heavy lifting. That's my process, is like to do as
Yeah.
much as I can in Harmony, then like kick out a few things to After Effects and put some finishing touches on it. But all right, so I also should bring up um, the reference images, style reference images. Okay, so for this project, um, I wanted to give it a specific look for the finish. Um, Let me turn this off for now. Oop. All right, so we got Luther, and I did a bunch of stuff with this. So these are the reference images I pulled up.
Hmm.
This is an image from, I believe, Jujutsu Kaisen. And then this is from Attack on Titan. And so, and Demon Slayer. So I wanted to kind of replicate or imitate like a lot of the finish on these images.
Hmm.
And what I noticed was like the lines are really crisp, right? But there's also like there's a lot of gradients, and there's also gradients kind of with the line work as well. And so I was just like, all right, well, how do I mimic this? How do I create something that sort of resembles this in Harmony, where you got like strong line work, but you got some gradients coming off the line work, and you got gradients within the character. Um, and then you also got like shadows within the character, but gradients coming off the shadows, right?
Yeah, those are
Uh,
very subtle details.
yeah, yeah, and I really wanted to try and make something like that. I didn't get it exactly, but I got something close and kind of cool. I also did not. I'll get into it later when I get there, but I didn't do like shadows. Like I didn't draw the shadows. I used a tool to create highlights engine.
Hmm.
So I'll get into it, but yeah. So with this character, I basically let me start with his torso. So what I did was I have his line. Oops, excuse me. I have his line art and his color art separate. So come on, you can do it. All right, we're gonna have to do this. There we go. All right, so got his line art on one layer, on the line layer, color on the color layer, right? So I was able to separate the line art from the color art. And what that allows me to do is to create, let's see, I'll bring the line art down here. So first the line art feeds into, the image, right? Then I also did another, brought the line art out again, where it comes over here. And I ended up adding a matte blur to it. So basically I have the line art and then I have line art on top of it again with a matte blur. that kind of gives it a fuzzy gradient. I don't know if you can actually see that, but it kind of gives a little bit of a gradient within the character. I wonder if I can like
Yeah,
increase.
but the colors sort of feed into each other a little bit.
Yeah. It also makes the line art look a little bit softer when you zoom
Mm.
out. So this is it off. These are hard outlines, right? This is on. It makes it a little softer looking, and it gives a little bit of a gradient on the inside. So I did that, and then you know that was the first. That was basically to get the line art right. Have the color in here on the separate layer, and then after that, I moved over and did some lighting effects on them. So I'm gonna hide this real quick. Oh my god, annoying. All right. So I softened the lines, then I added some lighting effects on them, right? Um, and I started with, what did I start with? Yeah, all right, so I'm gonna turn this highlight off real quick. Oop. Okay, so I started with adding some more gradients on them. So I ended up adding a shadow gradient, which pops on at his feet,
Mm.
kind of ground him. And so you see it's darker down here and lighter up here. This is basically, it's just a square. Let's see if this works. You can see it. Yeah. All
It's
right.
cut by the color art.
Hmm?
That gets cut by the color art.
It, I think it goes over, let's see, it's getting cut by, I see. No, it's just getting cut by the character. So it's
Okay,
getting
right on.
cut so it stays within the whole character. So it looks like it goes over the lines as well. So yeah, so I did that with a shadow gradient and then a little bit with a light gradient from the top. Um, so I just added more gradients on this guy. Let's see if you can see that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I really enjoy how like with compositing you can get really dramatic effects from like really simple tools like gradients and cutters.
yeah, yeah. It's a fun project to figure out. And yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. I had to get help to figure it out, but now that I know, like, yeah, I can do it. I can replicate it anytime. So it's fun to like figure. It's a nice puzzle sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I did was add a highlight, and the highlight has a little gradient on it to give you like so the highlight is I believe it's yellow, but it's got another little bit of a red bleed on it, which is a nice touch.
Mm,
And then I just did that with a uh, what is that? Apply peg transformation.
right. So
Uh,
it's the character mask by itself.
yeah, yeah. It's the character. Like if you see these lines, it's the exact shape of the character just slid down with a lighting effect on top of it. So that's what I was saying. Like I didn't do any shadows because I was just like I don't have
Yeah.
time to animate shadows. So I just got this character masked him by himself, and so whenever he moves, like the highlight follows his body movement. And so that's how I did that. And
Yeah.
then
I just want to say like a rim light is a really great way of like getting a very dramatic look with not a ton of effort. Like it's very
mhm,
economical.
yeah,
It also just looks great.
thanks. Yeah, I agree. Um, it plussed it up quite a bit, just from the flat colors. Um, so yeah, and that's basically the compositing for the character. And then I did a whole background thing. I don't know if you want to go through that or like this is the background.
Let's take a look.
Let's see. Boop. So actually, all right, if I'm going to go into this, I'm going to play the actual video first so you can see it.
Yeah.
I'm going to mute it though, so you don't. Can I mute it? Yeah. We don't need to hear all the music. Just need to see what the animation is doing. All right, so this is just going to loop, and then it kind of goes into the breakdown of the whole process. But you know what? It's only a minute and a half. I'll play the music. You can
Let's
see
play.
it. Yeah. All right. Here we go.
It's very good.
Thanks.
So, I have to say, like, if you had just stopped at like the line art, I think it would have been a really cool project already. But with the colors and the compositing, it looks fantastic. I also love the sort of abstract background that I just think draws more attention to the character too.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm a big fan of the background. It was a very this was a very fun part for me because I wanted to imitate the opening sequence of Luther,
Hmm.
which has a lot of reds and blacks and kind of like abstract shapes kind of moving about. Um, and so I was like, how am I going to replicate that in a short amount of time? Like at first I was going to like animate like a bunch of shapes and squares like moving around. Um, but I figured out a really quick solution. Um, so what I ended up doing was, I just had I did a red background, which let me see.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so I did a
You did
red
this in
background.
Harmony.
Hmm?
You did this in Harmony. That's wild.
Yeah, yeah. So I did this in Harmony. God, there's so many little bits and pieces to it, but let's see if I can break this down quickly.
Oh, that is wild. Okay, I know like three people who do backgrounds in Harmony, and now you're the fourth.
Oh yeah, I mean I don't always do them in Harmony, but I wanted it to be animated, so
Yeah.
I was just like, all right, let me do this. All right, so here's the start. Got a red background with a radial gradient on it,
Mm.
right? That's the beginning. Then what I ended up doing, let's see, is this it? Boop. Yes, that's it, but I don't want to go to that part first. Um, yeah, so that's the red background, right?
Yeah.
Then I drew, London. Um, and then I did a vignette. I was like, I want a bloody vignette on this thing to like frame them. So I'm really happy that Harmony has these these ink brushes now, which are really cool. So I got the ink brushes and just like splattered them on. Just had them set them to black and just started going over um, the outer edges of the image, and it created this really cool effect. I doubled it up as well. So like I have I have this version here with a transparency on it, and then I have this one. Oops, sorry, this one with no transparency, so it's like full on, right?
There's
And
some volume
then
and depth to it.
yeah, and so like, and they're kind of offset from each other, so that you can kind of see through them.
Oh, that is cool.
Um, and so this one also kind of changes opacity throughout. So that adds another little layer, a little effect. And then it's also, I added another element for the like the abstract bit um, that plays on top of the blood, on the transparent blood. And so it like kind of pops in and out in different areas. And that bit that I added is blood. I added, so all right, so when ugh, when Luther's name pops up, this blood that I animated
Yeah.
drips down. I duplicated that and brought it over here and sized it up really big.
Oh, that is cool.
I did it 3 times in 3 different places. I did apply peg transformations on it, so I just got a bunch of them. And then let me turn off. I wonder if I turn off the background if you can still see it. Let's see. Yeah, okay, there you go. So turn off the background, turn off this vignette real quick. Yeah, so
Oh, wow.
got this blood playing in the background, right? And it's just dripping and it's moving and it's creating all these weird, funky shapes. And it's got transparencies on it, and it just looks weird. Like you don't know
Yeah.
what you're looking at, right? And
Oh man,
then,
if I had known that you had animated the background too in Harmony, I would have asked you a whole nother set of questions.
oh, yeah, I mean, maybe next time. But yeah, so then what I did was I added this pixelate node on it. And so what that does is just makes it pixelated. And so you play that on top of this background and you get these really cool shapes that are kind of hard to see right here. But when I ended up taking it into After Effects, I adjusted some transparencies and whatnot, and it just kind of made it pop. I could probably do it here too. I just have to, I think what I did was, I think I just added a transparency here. Let's see if it works. Oop, wrong button. Yeah, it worked, but not the way I wanted it.
Hmm.
Anyways, I went into After Effects and just messed with the transparencies a bit. But what if you can kind of see it here. Um, Actually, let me go to a frame where you can really see it. One of my favorite frames. Let's see. Luther. Oh, that's my name. But I think it's this one. Dude. Yeah. So it just kind of created all these artifact effects and lines within the background. And what they do is that it also, you can't really see it here, but when you render it out, the artifacting and the pixelation kind of plays on top of the blood vignette. And so you get little pieces of blood just like it looks like it's splattering. It's a static image, but when it plays, when the vignette plays over it, it looks like the blood is kind of like splattering within these black areas in the vignette, and it turns out pretty neat. So yeah, that's this whole compositing and animating thing, animating the background in Harmony was honestly, besides the whole project is satisfying, but figuring that out and creating that cool background was a very satisfying accomplishment for me
Yeah.
personally.
The reason why like this is such a cool project for me, like the why I was really drawn to this is it's possible to be really siloed into like one specialty in animation. And I think it's really interesting when artists can try out different parts of a production. What drew you to take on the animation, the coloring, the compositing, everything?
Um, I mean, that's what I do, what I want to do. Um, I I've I think what I want to be is an independent filmmaker
Hmm.
slash creator. I have always um, tried to learn the whole process and do the whole thing on my own. I have like previous projects where I like did pilots and um, like whole projects by myself. I've had not by myself, not completely. I've had help, but I have like like I designed the characters, rigged the characters, animated the characters, did the effects, like did the layouts for the backgrounds, did the compositing, did the did a bunch of promo stuff. I made toys. I made t-shirts for stuff. Like I am a multifaceted artist, right? And I don't like being stuck in a box. And so I have all these ideas and stories in my head um, that I want to tell and present. Um, but I feel like I need to know the whole process so that I can get the ideas out there. Also, like selling the show is hard,
Yeah.
and very rare, and I've kind of given up on it. I'm to the point where it's just like, oh well, I want to make these things, and I know all the steps, so I'm just going to do it. Um, and like I don't know if I said it during the stream, but I started this particular project because I wanted to create frame by frame pieces for my portfolio. And in my opinion, a portfolio needs to have, well, not, it doesn't need to have. What I want for my portfolio is finished pieces. Um, so that means I need to finish it. It's not just roughs or line work or whatever. It's the whole thing. Like I want for my portfolio, for my brand, for people, the work that I put out, I want it to be finished, polished, and people to know, oh, like Ferguson, like does the whole thing. Like he puts out finished work, and yeah. So this is just a stepping stone because, like I said, I don't know if I said it on stream, but I have other projects that I'm doing,
Yeah.
and this particular project was just me kind of working out the kinks and like making sure that I could do what I am trying to do in the future so that when I get going, not get going, when I finish these other projects that I'm working on, I can take them to completion. I can take them to completion and, just kick out a professional looking finished product. And that is why I study all the aspects and why I try to finish these projects to the level that they are.
Yeah. Well, I think this is like a really ambitious loop for traditional animation. Are there tools in Harmony for traditional animators that more artists should be aware of?
Yeah. I mean, my workflow is very basic. Like I when you're working like traditionally, especially with this project, what I wanted to do is have I wanted to streamline it and have as few layers as possible, or nodes or pegs or whatever. Um, so like when I worked, like you saw, it was drawing the roughs and then doing the cleanups. This isn't a tool, but like something that I try to keep in mind when I'm working is um, this isn't like it's not a tool. It's just more. I don't know what the right word is, but
Organization.
organization is great. It's very important. Be organized. Have your node organized. Like that's one thing have run into a lot coming, working retakes when we get animation back from other studios. Like node trees are crazy. And the first thing I always do when I get a crazy scene is I go through and I reorganize it. So like you want to have a very organized node view. But like um, what I do when I animate is traditionally is I have oh my gosh, I have uh, where is it? There it is. Okay, I separate my line art from my color art within like a node. So
Yeah.
you got a torso node, right? So you got that. You got the line art on the line art layer, color art on a color art layer. That's important for me because, like I showed later, it allows you to do different things in compositing, like isolate your lines, multiply your lines. Having the color art on a separate layer allows you to cut things within the body of a character. Um, allows you to do like this highlight effect and keep it within the character, but also have like this bleed of red. So being organized in your node view, being organized with your layer structures and what art is on a layer is important. Um, Tools, this gets into the tools. Um, ugh, I hate that it's on a different side, but all right, when you're cleaning up, you can, like when I draw my roughs,
Hmm.
I draw with the brush tool. Come on, you can do it, right? But when I'm cleaning up, I use the pencil tool. And then, artists know the difference. The pencil tool is like a vector line that you can uh, move around and edit and pull the vertices of, etc. Whereas your brush tool is a vector line without like whatever. I forget all the terminology. But
Yeah. With the pencil line, you can move the center line. With the brush, as you have to move the outer bounds of it.
right, and it keeps the information within a line
Mhm.
streamlined. And so what I do when I clean up is I always, well, in this particular case, and what I will be doing in the future is using the pencil line when I clean up, so that what that allows me to do is make changes easily if I need to. Um, I can like connect it to different points. What it also allows me to do is change line widths
Mm.
later in the process. So, for example,
If you zoom
like,
out,
what's that?
if you like sort of zoom out, you have the character further away, you can make the lines thicker so they still show up.
Yeah, yeah. Like if the character's closer or further away, you can adjust the line. You can adjust the thickness of the line um, if it is if you draw it with the pencil tool. So like I'm not going to get into all of it, but I mean, if I just click this, it'll probably change something. over here. Yeah, see? So you can adjust pencil line width. Um, you can adjust line width when you use the pencil tool. So that's a very important thing, very important tool to use, and thing to keep in mind when you are finishing uh, animation. Um, Another tool that's very good is the stroke tool. Um, it's like an invisible, oop, come on, you. It's an invisible line, basically. And this is good for um, closing up gaps in your artwork. Or, so like say I wanted to, yeah, let's say I wanted to fill this in, right? All right, so it only fills it in so much. Or say there was like something that I was trying to get. All right, and if you like look down in here, you can see that there's this blue line going across here that
Hmm.
is preventing the color from going through. So that's kind of not what I want, but in other situations it's very helpful because you can have art that's like wide open. I don't know if I can, let me see if I can just do an example. Oh, wait, I got this right here. All right. You got art that's wide open right here. So if I tried to color that in, nothing's going to happen. But, you know, say you had this closer and you're just like, oh, I drew this. And you're like, oh, why is this not connecting? But you don't really want to connect this line. You want to have it open. You can hit the stroke tool, draw an invisible line, close it, right? All right, let me do a different color. Close it. And then when you look at it, rendered or whatever, you will not see that line. It's good for closing art. It's good
Yeah,
for doing shadows.
it's also great for doing sort of anime style eyes too, where
Yep.
the yeah.
So that's an important tool to know. Um, Stroke tool is Alt V if you're on PC. I think it's Command V on Mac, Apple, and then you press K to reveal the line. K again to hide it. Oop, I did it. That was not a stroke tool. But that's an important tool. Those are the main tools that I use when doing traditional. Um, I mean, other random like just like helpful tools like are your pegs, your you know. I wanted to do this all traditionally, but I like without pegs. But when it came to the head, I was just like, I'm not gonna track that head on however many drawings. Like I'm not gonna do it. Like I refuse. So I did a few drawings. Like so like if you
Clever
look at
solution.
this, yeah, it's one drawing, right? This head is one drawing and it's pegged and it's moving with the body. And then I did the head turn when that comes, but like I was just like, I'm not drawing this head over and over in like the same position. So that's a useful tool that helped me like move my process further or faster. Um, Using layers, breaking up layers when you're doing traditional animation. So like that's another thing. Like I'm not redrawing this whole cycle with like his arms in his pockets, right? Like I've done it with his arms out. I'm not gonna redraw his whole body, because his body is just moving in a loop, but his arms are changing. So I'm not gonna redraw the body every time when his arms are what's moving. So I did the arms on a separate peg, separate layer, peg, whatever you want to call it, and did the arms, but I matched, The naming, I matched it with the body, made sure there was a naming convention that was similar between the parts so that I could track them. All right, I don't know if you can see this over here. I'm just going to tell you what it says because it's very small, but it says TD underscore T11. And then I click the body that says TD underscore T11, right? So I like matched naming conventions. I can't remember. I think TD stood for tie down, and then underscore T was transition number 11, right? Because his arms are transitioning up, right? When you're at the very beginning, like this is just TD1. This is tie
Yep.
down 1. Um, Tie down 1, tie down 7,
Wow.
11, et cetera, et cetera. So you got to match up. You don't have to, but it will help and it will eliminate confusion down the line if you have naming conventions that are easy to understand, that are kind of consistent throughout the process, that match up with your different parts, so you don't lose track, and then also if you hand this off to somebody, it'll help them in the long run because it'll make it easier for them to keep track of things. Um,
I just want to pause for a second and just say, like, this is even cooler than I thought it was. Because, like, what you've done is you've taken a traditional animated scene and you've brought like, a handful of techniques from, like, cutout animation that I think are really smart.
Thanks.
But still, it still looks and feels like traditional hand drawn.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Like I said, I was trying to figure out how to get this to look good and do it as fast as possible, so I could go on to everything else I have going on. But like, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I was trying to complete this in the most economical way as I could
Yeah, I
without,
mean, if you're working on your own time, then that makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
Speaking of time, we are running out of time. But
Oh no.
Ferguson, where can we find more of your work on the web?
You can find me at my website, which is basically is just fergusonwinston.com, www.fergusonwinston.com. You can find me on Instagram at Ferguson Winston, and you can find me on YouTube uh, at Ferguson Winston. And it'll be easier to find all those through my website or through Instagram. So I'd probably recommend going to the website first, and it'll just take you everywhere you need to go.
Right. Ferguson, thank you so much for taking time to discuss your career as well as your project, Luther the Third. And thank you to our audience for joining us live and participating. If you enjoyed this discussion, you might also be interested in Toon Boom Animation's instructor-led training courses. If you'd like to improve your skills or step into a new role at a studio, we offer courses that can help you learn to rig, animate, and composite in Harmony Premium. For more information, visit toonboom.com/training. We're going to be hosting more conversations and discussions about character design this month, so be sure to stick around and tune in next time. Bye. And I think we're clear.